Speed and action.
I know it was you, Fredo. You broke my heart.
You know how to whistle, don't you, Steve? You just put your lips together and blow.
Welcome to the Foot and Friends on Film podcast, discussing everything about cinema. Now here's your host, Nick Baylor.
What's in the bar?
Houston, we have a problem.
You can't handle the truth.
I'm not what you think, Chris.
Welcome to the official podcast of Foot and Friends on Film.com, where we discuss everything about cinema. I'm your host, Nick Baylor. On today's episode, putting the spotlight on two-time Academy Award-winning Best Actor Sean Penn. We're going to go through his acting career and as well as take a look at his directing career. One of the best out there. It's going to be a good show. Take your seats, grab your popcorn, everybody. It's time for your feature presentation. As mentioned, we are the official podcast of Foot and Friends on Film.com, where our motto is, any film you have not seen is a new experience. Today we're talking about Sean Penn. You guys know the drill. We get the big man on the phone. So before we talk about one of his favorites, please welcome John H. Foote. So we're here today talking about two-time Academy Award winner, actor, director Sean Penn. Now, I've heard you say, John, I think at least once, that you think he's one of the finest actors working today, if not of all time. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Absolutely. When they talk about great American actors, they talk about Marlon Brando, Jack Nicholson, De Niro and Pacino in the 70s, and Sean Penn. And they've been talking about Sean Penn as a great American actor since he was 18 years old. He just had that whatever it is, he had it, and he's always had it.
He's got an intensity, I think, that is kind of unrivaled. I remember back in the film school days, we used to joke. I think it was our screenwriting class. We were coming up for ideas for comedy sketches, and I thought, I bet you could take Sean Penn doing the most mundane things in someone's daily routine, and just with some epic music and a slow zoom, he could take ordering at a McDonald's drive-thru and turn it into an Oscar-worthy speech.
You absolutely could. And his intensity on screen is alarming. I mean, it's almost frightening. It leaps off the screen at you, and he seems to convey a danger no matter what he's doing, whether he's playing the guy he played in Mystic River, At Close Range, Dead Men Walking, even Harvey Milk. His brilliant performance of Harvey Milk had such an intensity of joy to it. You just couldn't look away from the screen. And he's like that in person too. I've interviewed him up close and personal, and he's a very intense, very passionate guy about his art. He cares. He truly cares about his art form.
He's one of a few actors on a list of people, I always say, strikes you as someone you would not want to fuck with in real life.
Well, I mean, he's famously beat the hell out of a couple paparazzi when they were chasing he and his wife Madonna, and he holds paparazzi in contempt. He's very guarded with the press, but he likes film critics. I mean, I interviewed Sean Penn, a quick story. I interviewed Sean Penn for a film at TIFF, and it was the last interview of the day, and you're supposed to get 15, 20 minutes. I got 45. And when the interview was over, he said, "You want to have a beer?"
Huh.
And I don't drink. I said, "Well, you can have a beer, I'll have a water." So downstairs we went, across the street to the Windsor Arms. He's signing autographs on the way, posing for pictures. Another hour and 20 minutes with him in the Windsor Arms, just talking movies. Totally on the record. Had my tape recorder out, taking notes like a madman. Great. One of the great experiences of my life. And just a down-to-earth, cool guy.
Right on. All right, let's wind back the clock here. We're going to go through his filmography. Makes his cinematic debut in 1981 in a movie called Taps.
And this was a big box office hit. It was a surprise box office hit because it starred a trio of young actors, Oscar winner Timothy Hutton, who had just won the Oscar for Ordinary People, Tom Cruise, who was on the rise, and Sean Penn. And Sean Penn is the good guy. He's the good kid in the movie. And it's about a group of military students who take over their school when there's a move to shut it down. And they are trained with weapons. They're trained in war, and they take it over and hold hostages, the whole bit. It's an exciting film. It was a big box office success at the time. It wasn't all that well reviewed, but audiences liked it and stormed to see it. And Penn attracted a lot of attention as this decent young man. Tom Cruise got the lion's share of attention as a maniac at the end of the film, who's got a hold of a machine gun and he just loves it. It's like his new favorite toy. So it was a group of young actors, all who had come up very quickly, and people have been hearing about Sean Penn in the audition world for years. We heard Joaquin Phoenix at this year's Oscars talk about bumping into DiCaprio at all the auditions. The same was true of Sean Penn in the early 80s. Wherever Matt Dillon was, Sean Penn was. Wherever Tom Cruise was, Sean Penn was. They all went up to the same movies and saw each other at all these auditions. They were all good friends, really good friends, and have remained such.
We can't talk about Sean Penn without mentioning Jeff Spicoli from 1982's Fast Times at Ridge Mountain High.
I encountered a film student once who challenged me, which is suicide.
You talking about me?
No, it wasn't you, but he challenged me about Sean Penn being a great actor. And I told him, you go home and you watch Fast Times at Ridgemount High, then you watch Dead Men Walking, then you watch Mystic River, and you come back, look me in the eye, and tell me Sean Penn is not a great actor. His performance as Jeff Spicoli in Fast Times at Ridgemount High is 96% improvised. Most of that he thought up and just did it on his own. And the director, Penelope Spheris, was so impressed with what he was doing, she kept inventing more scenes for him to bring Spicoli greater into focus in the film. He steals the movie as the stoner dude, smoking pot all the time, ordering pizza in class.
Right.
And yet he's this sweetheart of a guy. He's got a sweet personality. He doesn't mean harm to anybody. He truly can't understand when Mr. Hand takes his pizza away and starts giving him shit. All he did was order a pizza. He just doesn't get it. And, it's a great performance. And the end of it, when the guy comes in and he's going to rob the convenience store, and Penn sort of helps, I guess, inadvertently capture him, is a thing of beauty. What's he do with his reward money? He throws a party, hires Van Halen, and pisses it all away. Just a terrific performance. Pauline Kael, the great American film critic, when she reviewed this movie, she said it's a typical teen comedy with one exception. It's absolutely real, and it has bite the nose talent Sean Penn. And she was absolutely right.
Yeah. Legendary performance, obviously. In 1983, Penn starred in the film Bad Boys, not to be confused with the later film of the same name, starring Martin Lawrence and Will Smith. Let's talk about the 1983 Bad Boys.
It's a pretty good movie. He plays a young hoodlum in Chicago, and he's gets involved in a gang fight and accidentally kills the brother of a gang leader, a Hispanic gang leader, and is sent to a reformatory for young men. And the gang leader ends up going there as well, but he goes there specifically to deal with Sean Penn. And by this time, Sean Penn owns the place. He's taking care of the leaders of it and is running the show. And this Hispanic guy gets there, and they are literally at war with each other. It's a really commanding performance. It's a tough guy performance, and he doesn't disappoint. Sean Penn's not a very big guy. He's about 5'8", but he's muscled, man. He's coiled, and he's tough, and he's solid. And this was the first time we really got a sense that this guy could be an ass kicker if need be. And a really powerful piece of acting from a kid. He was still a kid at this point in his career.
He appeared in 1984 alongside Donald Sutherland and Jack Warden in a film called Crackers.
Yeah, Crackers kind of sadly opened and disappeared very, very quickly. It was about safe crackers, obviously. And I saw it, and I've only ever seen it once. And I saw it back in 1984. I liked it. I didn't love it. He fit in well with the cast he was up against. Donald Sutherland is a formidable actor. and Penn did very well with him. But it's not a great movie in his filmography. I think he learned a lot from Donald Sutherland. I think anybody that works with Donald Sutherland learns from him. But he was pretty content to move on to make other films with younger actors,
That same year, he appeared in Racing with the Moon.
and became best friends with Nick Cage. A friendship that held up till about 1997. Really good movie about two kids before the war, World War II. He plays Hopper, who's a decent guy who falls in love with a young lady played by Elizabeth McGovern, and they were a couple during the film as well. And it's a coming of age movie. Two young men about to go off to war, knowing their lives in the small town are never ever going to be the same. Beautifully acted. You really get a sense that these two guys are on the rise, Cage and Penn. They've got a lovely, easygoing chemistry together that suggests their friendship has been lifelong, which it has in the film. And just the way they look at each other, like they've known each other forever, familiar and with such fondness, and beautifully acted, nicely directed by Richard Benjamin, who himself was an actor and a pretty good actor. But he had a much better career as a director, and this was probably his best film.
Right on. The following year, Penn appeared in The Falcon and the Snowman.
And this is probably the first time we get an idea of what a chameleon Sean Penn is. Um, he plays a nut in this movie. His character, Dalton Lee, ends up being a spy and sells secrets to the Russians with his friend Timothy Hutton. And Penn's performance is as a dangerous, unhinged young man who could cause the nation a lot of trouble because he's so reckless, he's so careless, and eventually he's so stupid. And you don't recognize him in the film. It's unrecognizable as Sean Penn. He wears a wig, his hair's darker, just the voice that he does, the mannerisms. It's almost Robert De Niro as Rupert Pupkin, channeled through Sean Penn. And again, a really fine performance, directed by John Schlesinger, who's no slouch. I mean, the man directed Midnight Cowboy and Marathon Man, and this was his last great film, and pretty solid movie all around.
In 1986, in a film directed by James Foley, At Close Range, Sean Penn stars opposite Christopher Walken.
I think this is one of the greatest films of the 1980s and one of the greatest films of that year. Certainly one of the best films in his filmography. It's based on a true story about Brad Whitewood Sr., played by Walken, who was a thief and a murderer, and he stole farm equipment in the Kansas countryside. Big items, tractors, combines, wagons, anything that he could sell for a fast buck. And anyone who betrayed him, he killed them. And his sons have been estranged from him, and he takes them into his gang. He calls it the Kitty Gang, and they steal smaller farm items. And Sean Penn is kind of the leader of that. He's Brad Whitewood Jr., Little Brad, they call him. And he's enamored by his father. He can't take his eyes off him. And Walken plays the part with such charisma, but such danger. You just know this guy is bad news. And finally, Brad Jr., Little Brad, sees his father kill a man. And he's out. He wants no part of it. But now that he's seen that, he's in for good. And very slowly, Brad Sr. goes about killing all the members of the Kitty Gang, including Sean Penn's stepbrother, played by his real brother, Chris Penn.
Right.
And it's absolutely chilling to watch Walken do away with these kids, because he walks them out into a field. There's a hole dug. They look at the hole. He picks up a gun and shoots them in the head. And finally, Brad Jr. turns on him when he ambushes Penn and his girlfriend trying to get away. The girl is slaughtered, just pumped full of lead. Penn's character manages to go to his father's house that night and holds his father at gunpoint as the police come. And you're watching two acting titans go toe to toe. And Sean Penn does not yield an inch. He matches Christopher Walken step for step all the way through this motion picture. I don't know how the two of them were not nominated for Best Actor, because they each deserved to be there. Jim Foley deserved to be there for his direction. He's made two great films in his life, this one and Glengarry Glen Ross.
Right, I was just about to mention
that. He wasn't really noticed for either, which is a shame. But At Close Range, seek it out. It's one of the hidden gems of the 80s and one of the best pieces of work from either Sean Penn or Christopher Walken.
You heard it here, folks. We have to talk about that same year, Shanghai Surprise, notable because it earned Penn a Golden Raspberry Award for Worst Actor nomination.
By this point in his career, he'd married Madonna, and the two of them wanted to make a movie together, and they chose to make a screwball comedy called Shanghai Surprise. The problem was it wasn't funny. It wasn't the least bit funny. In fact, it was wretched and embarrassing and horrific to watch. It made clear beyond a shadow of a doubt that Madonna cannot act. She never could. She never will be able to. She's a bum as an actor. She's so self-conscious, and she's acting with an absolutely naturalistic method actor. And she looked like a complete ass on every level. And Sean Penn was just dragged down by her complete unprofessionalism and dreadful acting skills. You can't give a good performance opposite nothing. And that's what Madonna was nothing. It's like acting with a cipher. And a huge box office bomb on every level.
What about Tom Hanks and the volleyball in Castaway?
Well, he's terrific, but then you've got a great actor, and to him, Wilson existed. To us, Wilson existed. To us, Wilson, yes, he was inanimate, but he was that man's friend,
Yeah,
you
with the
know,
with the
and he made
voice
it
of
work.
director Robert Zemeckis, as Hanks tells it.
Yes, yes.
Anyway, sorry, that's diverging off topic here. In 1988, we have Colors.
I talked to both Robert Duvall and Sean Penn about this at length, and Robert Duvall said to me with a smile, he smacked my knee and he said, when I made this movie, everybody loved me because I got to beat the shit out of Sean Penn. And he was the most hated guy in America at that point. This is when Sean Penn had throttled a couple paparazzis for chasing he and Madonna around LA and injuring Madonna at one point. And it's a great movie about two cops in East LA fighting the gang wars. And one of them is a young hothead, Sean Penn, and the other is a grizzled old veteran who's almost to the point of retiring. And you can see pretty much from the midway point what's going to happen, and it does happen. Duvall's character is killed, and Penn feels responsible because he inadvertently set the thing up. But he's going to carry the torch and become a better man and a better cop because of his relationship with Robert Duvall. It was directed by Dennis Hopper, himself an actor, and you can feel that it was directed by an actor because there's a lot of actorly moments and small intimate moments that work. A lot of scenes between Duvall and Penn are just easygoing talking moments about being a cop and about why they became a cop and why they love being a cop. And a strong film. It was really well received and was a major success through the summer of 1988.
That same year, he appeared in Judgment in Berlin, a film directed by his father, Leo Penn.
Yeah, Leo Penn was blacklisted during the McCarthy period in the 1950s, and he came back as largely a TV director through the 60s and 70s. He actually directed Sean in a few episodes of Little House on the Prairie when Sean was a child actor. This was largely made for European television, and to even mention it, I think we're doing it an injustice because it just wasn't a good movie. Sean Penn did it for his father to help his father get it launched, and that's really all I've got to say about it.
All right, fair enough. Moving on to 1989, we have Casualties of War, directed by Brian De Palma.
This had been a dream project from De Palma since the 70s. It was based on a short story in the New York Times about a platoon of soldiers who kidnapped a Viet Cong girl for R&R, and for the next 4 days they raped her and finally murdered her. And one of the platoon, played by Michael J. Fox, refused to take part, and he reported his superiors, and they were court-martialed and sent to jail. Sean Penn plays Tony Meserve, and he is, by all accounts, a good sergeant, a good leader. But something breaks in him when he sees his friend Brownie murdered in front of his eyes by the Viet Cong. They're standing talking in a rice paddy, and suddenly Brownie is choking blood and dying in front of his eyes. And something breaks. You can see it in Penn's eyes. He's become angry. He's become homicidal. And when their R&R is canceled to Hong Kong, he decides that this is what they're going to do. They're going to kidnap a young girl out of her bed, out of her hut, and take her away and rape her for 3 days. And that's exactly what they do. It's a punishing, horrifying movie, but it's also absolutely brilliant. My wife couldn't watch it. We watched it. I saw it at the critics screening and wanted her to see it, and she couldn't do it. She leaned over and said, "John, I can't do this. I'll wait in the lobby," and that's what she did. She tried again to watch it years later and just couldn't do it. The scenes with the young girl being assaulted are horrific. And Sean Penn and Michael J. Fox worked with the young lady to make her more comfortable. Brian De Palma said they wept after those scenes. All of them sat down and cried at what they had done over the course of that movie, that something like that had actually happened for real. There was a lot of speculation that Sean Penn would blow Michael J. Fox off the screen. That didn't happen. That did not happen. Sean Penn was very powerful in the lead part, and he commands the screen again. But Michael J. Fox held his own. He absolutely held his own. He'll never be on the same level as Sean Penn, but he threw everything he had into this movie and should have been absolutely proud of what he accomplished because he was terrific. Sadly, despite rave reviews, and I mean rave reviews, Academy Award reviews, the movie sank without a trace. The studio released it in the summer of 1989. So we've got Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, Ghostbusters 2, Batman, and The Little Mermaid in theaters, and out comes Casualties of War, which never had a chance against those films.
That same year, he appeared in a box office bomb called We're No Angels with Robert De Niro and Demi Moore.
Yeah, this is a remake of a 1954 film with Humphrey Bogart about a couple of convicts who end up doing some good, when they're sent to prison and escape. Problem was Neil Jordan directed it, and he's a pretty serious guy. Robert De Niro is not a funny guy, and Sean Penn is not a particularly funny guy either. And it was just a mess. De Niro and Penn had no chemistry whatsoever. Sean Penn had more chemistry with the young priest that he encounters, and there's a homoerotic relationship develops between them. And he may go into the priesthood by the end of the film. You just don't know. Demi Moore and Robert De Niro have a relationship that looked absolutely asinine, given their age difference. And it was just a stupid, bad movie. Failed, sunk like a stone, and deserved to sink like a stone.
I just have to interject here because while I agree Robert De Niro is not a particularly funny guy, I think he's had some success in comedy. One thing that comes to mind for me, a movie I love, is Analyze This.
Okay, fair enough. He was okay in Analyze This. I think he had a great comedian to work off of. I'm not sure who the straight man is there, whether it's Billy Crystal, whether it's Robert De Niro. De Niro's not playing it for comedy. He's playing a hood, and he goes that distance. Billy Crystal's playing it for comedy.
I think their chemistry really takes it over.
It is. They've got a lovely chemistry together. You're absolutely right. And both the film and the sequel were successful, and they did well. But as an out and out comedic actor, I don't believe De Niro's got the goods. I think he was sometimes funny in The King of Comedy, but more often than not disturbing. The guy was a freak show.
Yeah, he had his moments in Meet the Parents.
Yeah, fair enough.
But anyway, that's a topic for another podcast. I'm sure we'll get to it. 1990, State of Grace.
Really good film that brought together Sean Penn, Gary Oldman, and Ed Harris. And Sean Penn plays a cop who returns to his roots in the Irish gangs, where Gary Oldman runs amok as a dangerous assassin, and his brother Ed Harris runs the show. And it's a showdown between the police and the Irish gang. Real great chemistry between Gary Oldman and Sean Penn. A real clash of acting titans going to war in the film. And any scene Ed Harris is in, he's insidious and dangerous. Really good film. I wish it had done better at the box office. I wish the critics had been a bit kinder to it, because it's a real powerful piece of cinema that holds up very, very well.
Right on. We talked a little bit about Carlito's Way on our Al Pacino episode, but you mentioned how you believe Penn stole the show.
I do. He was nominated for a Golden Globe for Best Supporting Actor. There was speculation he'd be up for an Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. He wasn't, but he should have been. He wears a red afro in this movie and glasses. He completely changed his looks, and he's kind of a nerdy, creepy little guy, the kind of guy that would eat dinner with you, and then make sure he had no money, so you had to pay. Just that kind of guy, sleazy. And he is the lawyer of this criminal Carlito who's just been released from jail. And he makes the mistake of stealing cocaine from a drug cartel and lands himself in a world of trouble. And Al Pacino's Carlito does everything he can to help him, but this guy is his own worst enemy. David Kirkfield, Kleinfield is his name. And he's just a complete walking idiot. But Penn portrays him beautifully. It's a remarkable performance. And any trace of Sean Penn and anything else he had done, again, is gone. The chameleon factor is in full force there.
Right on. Sorry, just give me a moment here.
Yep.
One of Penn's most acclaimed performances is the one we're going to talk about next, and that's in Dead Man Walking, a film directed by Tim Robbins.
This is a real brilliant film on every level. Tim Robbins got an Academy Award nomination for Best Director, but it was not nominated for Best Picture. Susan Sarandon won the Academy Award for Best Actress. Sean Penn was nominated for Best Actor. He won a slew of critics awards, and I think should have won the Academy Award that year as well. He plays Matthew Poncelat, a young man who is on death row. He's a week away from execution, and he asks Sister Helen Fragine if she will be his spiritual advisor. And over the course of their counseling together, he hits on her, he insults her, he rages at her, and then he finally confesses to her. He did kill that young girl and young man. He did rape the young girl. And in confessing, he finds peace, and he goes to his death knowing that this nun loves him, and that if there is a God, whatever, also loves him. A very powerful performance, a great study of capital punishment and whether or not it should exist. I personally think it should, but a lot of people don't. They think an eye for an eye is silly. Tim Robbins did a magnificent job with the actors. Sean Penn is seen largely in medium to full close-up. We rarely see his whole body in the film. And giving a performance like he does from the waist up is remarkable. And he's like a cobra, his eyes are hooded, and he's dancing around the issue with this nun. He's dangerous, and he's clearly dangerous. And she's afraid of him. She doesn't even know that she likes him. But by the end of the film, she loves him. She thinks he's a decent human being in there who made a terrible mistake and genuinely regrets it. And a masterful film, a masterpiece on every level. And again, I think he deserved the Academy Award that year for Best Actor.
I have to stop here and just mention two things, actually. This is not a political show, but on the death penalty, I fall somewhere in the middle in the sense that I believe that there are absolutely people who deserve to die and don't deserve to live. I just struggle with giving the state the authority to make and carry out that decision. So I think that's where a lot of people struggle with it.
I think if it's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, for instance, Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka,
Right.
no doubt they did it. And beyond doing it, they tortured and raped and brutalized those little girls, those little 15-year-old girls for days.
Yeah.
And I don't believe they deserve to live another day on the planet. That happened almost 30 years ago. She's free. She's out walking around. She's had children, free as a bird. He's still in prison and will be in prison till the day he dies. Why? Why are we paying for that? Why are taxpayers paying for that monster to live? I think when there's proof such as that, do them.
No, I hear you, and I definitely wouldn't argue that they deserve to live. Anyway, bigger discussion for another show. It's
Yep.
probably not ours. But another reason I wanted to pause on Dead Man Walking is I can't help but recall a story that's told by Kevin Smith. When Kevin Smith was brought in by Warner Brothers to work on the script for the then upcoming Superman reboot, which was to be directed by Tim Burton, he recalls a bunch of stories meeting with producer John Peters, and he asked him, Smith asked Peters who he was thinking as far as an actor to play Superman. And Peters' response was Sean Penn. And surprisingly was like Spicoli, and he's like, if you've ever seen that movie Dead Man Walking, I mean, that's just a cold-blooded killer. Like you can just see it in his eyes. And then Smith was like, but he's Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a bit of a funny story.
John Peters is a nightmare of a human being. He really is.
So
I remember stories Kevin Spacey used to tell about the Superman film. Has to have a spider. Has to have a giant spider at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And he did that in Wild Wild West, and that movie was a disaster. But that's John Peters. He was a former hairdresser, Barbra Streisand's boyfriend, wormed his way into movies, had mammoth successes, and is just a total fool. Doesn't know anything about movies.
yeah, that seems to be the impression that you get from all the stories. Okay, so as you mentioned, yes, Penn nominated for Best Actor for Dead Man Walking. In 1997, Penn appeared in 5 different movies. First one is titled Love, which co-starred Robin Wright.
Yeah, this was at TIFF, and it was an interesting little film about love affairs. Not particularly memorable. Memorable more for the women that were in it than the guys, but he did get to work with his wife Robin Wright for the first time, and they had a nice, easygoing chemistry together. I saw the film at TIFF, unimpressed. I much preferred the other films he did that year. She's So Lovely with Robin Wright again,
Right.
and John Travolta. And for this one, Sean Penn won the Best Actor prize at Cannes. He plays a convict who just gets out of prison, and she was his former girlfriend who is now married to John Travolta, and he's got this hold on her, and she just can't stay away from him. And he's poison, and she knows it, but she cannot stay away from him. And the movie is a tug of war between Travolta and Penn about who's going to get the girl. And great performances. Travolta was terrific in this movie. He didn't get enough credit for how good he was. Sean Penn also worked with Oliver Stone for the first time in U-Turn in 1997, and he stepped into the role a week before it started shooting. So he had no time to prepare, and he played a guy named Bobby Cooper who gets trapped in this small town on the Mexican border, and it's like being in the armpit of the world. The people there are all, God, rejects on every abortions that lived for the most part. And he encounters just one despicable human being after another. But he himself is a lousy human being. He's lugging around a suitcase of stolen money. And the wars between Sean Penn and Oliver Stone on set became legend. You know, Oliver Stone as a director is a bully, and he's always been able to bully actors. Well, nobody bullied Sean Penn. He will kick their ass. And the war that went on between these two guys was just quite extraordinary. Some great people in this movie: Jennifer Lopez, Joaquin Phoenix, Billy Bob Thornton, some terrific people, some terrific performances. But critics didn't like it. They felt the movie was dirty. Everybody said we needed a shower after we saw it. And that's a pretty apt description of it, I would say.
He also appeared that year in The Game, directed by, pardon me, David Fincher.
Terrific movie, a terrific movie. He plays the younger brother of a mogul, Michael Douglas, and Sean Penn gifts to him a game. And Michael Douglas doesn't know it's a game, and he goes through a night of living hell. Everything he holds dear to him is taken from him. And we watch this poor guy spiral absolutely out of control, only to find out at the end of the film, spoiler alert here, it's all a game. It's a ruse to make you appreciate your life. And Sean Penn is there at the end of the movie celebrating with his brother that now his brother truly appreciates life. And it's kind of a cult classic. I liked it. I didn't love it, but it's got a real following with cults and is very well liked by a certain group of people.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's there's nothing to dislike about it. David Fincher, how do you go wrong?
Alien 3.
I disagree. I liked Alien 3.
Really?
I did, absolutely. I think it's one of the toughest and grittiest of the Alien movies.
You know what? I actually don't dislike it either. I was just putting that out there because that's the go-to everybody mentions.
Oh, people killed him for it. I mean, that movie opened and it was going to be like David Fincher will never direct another movie. Well, I remember seeing it at a press screening and thinking this is pretty good. I mean, he's done something completely different that James Cameron did, and he's taken Ripley to a whole new level, you know?
Yeah,
And that final moment when she's falling and the thing bursts out of her chest and she grabs it and pulls it with her to die is very, very powerful.
it is. It really is. Sorry, where are we here? We're still in 1997. Hugo Poole, also known as Pool Girl in the United Kingdom, directed
Yeah,
by Robert Downey Jr.
kind of a nothing movie. It starred Alyssa Milano and Patrick Dempsey, and Sean Penn had a very, very small part in it. He played a hitchhiker and was on screen for maybe 5 minutes. That's it. He did it as a favor to some friends of his, and open and close, God, the same week, I think.
Yeah. So moving along, 1998, Hurly Burly.
Yeah, a really great play from David Mamet um, about Hollywood, about the ugliness in Hollywood. And he plays Eddie, the fast talking bastard on every level, and a terrific ensemble piece. Wonderful performances here from Kevin Spacey. But Sean Penn leads the pack. He won the Volpe Cup for Best Actor in Europe. And the film opened over here to pretty good reviews, but no box office. Nobody went to see it. And it's one of those plays that belongs on stage. It just didn't transfer real well to film. And that's been true of a few Mamet plays. They don't quite work as a movie.
That in 1998, we also have to talk about The Thin Red Line, pretty massive war epic written and directed by Terrence Malick.
When actors heard that Malick was back after 20 years to make a film, they offered to work for him for nothing. Mickey Rourke famously said, "I'll pay him to be in the movie." And he was in the movie, but his part was cut.
Yeah.
And this is where working for Malick is a risk. He doesn't care who you are. He doesn't care how big a star you are. He'll cut you down to nothing. And rumor has it, the first cut of this movie was 4.5 hours long, and the star was Adrian Brody.
Yeah.
So when it was finally released as a 2 hour, 15-minute cut, Brody had a 10-minute scene, maybe, and Sean Penn and Nick Nolte were pretty much the stars. Um, and that said, Penn can't really be called the star of the movie. I mean, it's a big ensemble piece. It's a great film. It really is. It explores how man deals with war in the South Pacific, and also how it impacted nature, the grass, the trees, the animals, being affected by this horrific combat as well. And it's a real meditative piece. It's got a spectacular musical score. And had it not been released the same year as Saving Private Ryan, I think it would have been recognized as a great war film. And sadly, it's not. It's recognized as a good film, but not on the same level as Saving Private Ryan. And I don't think it's as great a film as Saving Private Ryan. I think Ryan is a magnificent film. But I think Malick's film deserved more attention than it got. It's got some wonderful moments all through.
1999, we have Sweet and Lowdown.
Yeah, his first, as he calls it, my first Woody. His first time working with Woody Allen. And he plays Emmett Ray, a famous guitar player during the Depression, who toured the United States, entering guitar contests and winning them, pretending that he was a Joe in off the street. Um, it's an interesting Woody Allen love story. Penn hooks up with a mute girl, a deaf mute girl, and they have a very bizarre, very strange relationship, almost abusive, almost misogynistic. And Penn's character is not what you could call likable. But if anybody can play dislikable and still make you care about them a little bit, it's going to be Sean Penn. He got his second Academy Award nomination for Best Actor for this, as well as a Golden Globe, and gave a really solid performance. It's not incredibly recognized as one of Woody Allen's great films, yet is one of his more acclaimed films in the 1990s.
In 2000, we have Up in the Villa, directed by Philip Haas, starring Kristen Scott, Thomas, Anne Bancroft, James Fox, Derek Jacobi, and of course Sean Penn.
Yeah, there's a trio of films in 2000 that kind of all slip under the wire. They just weren't big movies at all. Up at the Villa, open and closed the same week. Before Nightfall, Sean Penn had a cameo. The movie belongs to Javier Bardem. It got him his first Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. And The Weight of Water, directed by the absolutely exquisite Catherine Bigelow. This one stars Sean Penn and Sarah Polley, Canada's royalty, I think. I love Sarah Polley.
Yeah.
Um, all three of them kind of slipped under the wire. They just weren't big movies. They didn't attract attention. The Weight of Water did because it was Kathy Bigelow and because of Sarah Polley. But Penn's okay in it. He doesn't break any great ground as an actor. It's a solid performance, but it's not a great performance.
We have to talk about 2001's I Am Sam. If only for the fact that this film was later immortalized in Tropic Thunder when Robert Downey Jr. and Ben Stiller's characters are talking to each other about going quote unquote full retard.
Yeah, yeah. I'm totally politically incorrect, you know.
That's
Um,
not real.
I Am Sam is a magnificent performance from Sean Penn.
I
I
agree.
mean, playing somebody mentally challenged is a hard, hard job because you can either do it poorly, as Cliff Robertson did in Charlie back in 1968, and those idiots on the Academy gave him an Academy Award, or you can do it like Leo DiCaprio and What's Eating Gilbert Grape and Sean Penn in this film. Um, he plays a man who has fathered a little girl through a very strange relationship. We think he was used by a woman for sex and then tossed aside, and he's raising this little girl and he adores her and she adores him, but intellectually she's 6 and she's surpassed him. She's now reading to him at bedtime, and the court decides that they should not be together, that he shouldn't be raising her. And he goes to court. He gets a lawyer played by Michelle Pfeiffer, and they go to court, and Michelle Pfeiffer sees in him everything good that a father should be, everything decent that a father should be. And he knows how to get dressed, he knows how to cook, he knows when to put her to bed, he knows right from wrong, and he can keep her safe. So he fights for her and he wins. The relationship between Sean Penn and Dakota Fanning, who was 6 at the time, is absolutely breathtaking, absolutely wonderful. They're beautiful together. And Sean Penn's performance is full of wonder and beauty and just a miraculous piece of acting. And again, he got his 3rd Academy Award nomination. Um, I don't know how he didn't win. It wasn't a great year in 2001. The best performance by Gene Hackman in The Royal Tenenbaums wasn't nominated. So, there wasn't a lot of competition.
Also, very interesting soundtrack.
It is. It is. And some great supporting performances. The guys that play his group of buddies, 2 of them are mentally challenged. One of them isn't. And he does every bit as good a job acting as Sean Penn does.
Yeah, it's I really enjoy the film. It's quite a tearjerker.
Yes, it is. It is.
All right, moving along. It's
Could
all
jump right
about
to 2003.
yeah. Do we want to talk about It's All About Love?
Oh, no.
No. All right. Well, then let's just get right to it. Got to talk about the movie that got Sean Penn his first Academy Award for Best Actor, an absolute masterpiece directed by Clint Eastwood, based on a novel by Dennis Lehane. We're talking about Mystic River.
This is an extraordinary movie, and it's a great film about fathers and what they will do for their children. There's a scene in this movie where Sean Penn realizes that his daughter has been discovered dead in a pit in a park, and he's trying to get through the line to see if it's her, to get to see her, and he's held back by policemen. And Sean Penn told the actors playing the cops, "Do whatever it takes to hold me back. I'm going to go for it and try to get through." It took 11 big, strong men to hold him back. His performance during that scene where he's screaming, "Is that my daughter in there?" is the most extraordinary example of fury and raw rage I've ever seen on screen. I mean, for that scene alone, they should have given him the Academy Award. He knows it's her, and the desperation and the pain and the hurt on his face is merged with this grief and this anger and this rage. All through the movie, Jimmy Markham is out to get whoever killed his daughter, and he's going to do it. He's absolutely going to do it. What he doesn't count on is that he kills the wrong guy. He kills his friend, Dave, who had been abused as a child. And Dave, thinking he's pleading for his life, confesses to killing her, and Penn kills him. And then the cop investigating the case, played by Kevin Bacon, goes to Penn and says, "We got him. Dead to cold. They confessed. We got him." And he realizes that he's killed the wrong guy. And Kevin Bacon looks at him and says, "What have you done, Jimmy?" But they'll never find the body, so they can never convict. And Penn is absolute royalty in this movie. Dark royalty. He owns the neighborhood, and he knows it. And when the awards started coming in, he won the Boston Film Critics Award for Best Actor, the Broadcast Film Critics, the Golden Globe, the Florida Film Critics, the New York Film Critics, the LA Film Critics, and finally the Academy Award. And standing ovation greeted him. And he didn't see it till it turned around and was blown away that they were standing for him. But it was a tribute to one of the, if not the greatest actors of his time. And I loved what he said about Clint Eastwood. He told me Clint Eastwood is the least disappointing icon in the United States of America. He loved Clint. And he told him, "I will work for you anywhere, anytime. Just call me and I'm in." That's what he thinks of Clint Eastwood.
And the film also earned Tim Robbins a Best Supporting Actor Oscar.
Yeah, Tim Robbins was terrific in the movie as poor Dave. This guy haunted by being abused as a child. He's kind of a walking ghost. And he's got a great scene on the porch with Jimmy. The two of them are talking about how Jimmy can't cry. And he's so comfortable with Dave, he is actually finally crying. And very powerful scene between two great actors.
Another great film in this sort of subgenre of Boston crime films, which we've seen spring up. And
Yeah, and there's been a few of them. Ben Affleck has directed, Gone Baby Gone, and then The Town. Some good pictures.
Yeah, Shutter Island, also
Yep.
on a novel by the same author.
Yes, he's written some good stuff, and it always makes a good film.
Yeah. Okay. So that same year, he appeared in 21 Grams.
And it was interesting. The day of the Academy Award nominations, the Academy immediately calls the actors nominated to see if they're coming and how many tickets they need. And they called Sean Penn and they said to him, "Congratulations." And he said, "Thank you very much." And then they said to him, "It honestly could have been 2 nominations, Sean. You also could have been nominated for 21 Grams." And true enough, he actually won several critics awards for 21 Grams, the Las Vegas Critics Society, the National Board of Review, the Satellite Award for Best Actor, and the National Board of Review for Best Actor for this movie, 21 Grams. He plays Paul Rivers, and it's about how an accident brings together a group of people to deal with their pain and their suffering. Do I think it's a better performance than Mystic River? Absolutely not. I think Mystic River is one of the great performances of all time. But 21 Grams is solid work from Sean Penn.
In 2004, he appeared in The Assassination of Richard Nixon.
I love this movie. I saw this movie at TIFF and was convinced he'd be nominated for another Academy Award. It's a true story. It's a not very well-known story, but he plays Samuel J. Vick, who was just one of life's losers. His wife divorced him. He lost his job. He couldn't hold a job as a furniture salesman. And he wrote letters to Bernstein, the great music composer, about his troubles. And these letters were eventually got by the composer and read. And he talked in detail how he was going to kill Richard Nixon, because he blamed Richard Nixon for everything that was wrong with America and everything that was wrong with him. And a really powerful performance. He gets on that plane and he's headed to Washington to do Nixon. He's really going to do it. And as the story goes, they took him out on the airplane. They killed him before he could do what he was going to do. But Penn sinks right into the character of Sam Vick. He's really a pathetic guy. And you feel for him because he's his own worst enemy. He just keeps screwing up. And you always wonder, when is it going to stop? When is he going to realize not to do the things that he does? And he just never does.
2005, Penn appeared in The Interpreter.
This was kind of a surprise for me because Sean Penn doesn't usually do a mainstream cinema. He's always doing something that's got a message or something that means something. And this movie with Nicole Kidman was pure, pure action cinema, a throwaway movie. I saw it, and you know what? I have not thought about it again till this very second. And that's loving both of them. It's probably here among my DVD collection, but I have not ever watched it again.
Well, that's what I'm here for. So we also have, okay, no, we got to talk about this 2006. I think this is another TIFF memory for you, All the King's Men.
Yeah. This was a big deal. I went to the gala for this. I was invited by the studio to go to the gala. I'd given tickets, so I went. And at the beginning of the film, they bring out the cast. James Gandolfini, Anthony Hopkins, Jude Law, Kate Winslet, Patricia Clarkson. I mean, the list just went on and on and on. Mark Ruffalo, the director, Steve Zalian, the writer, who wrote The Irishman this year, and finally Sean Penn. Standing ovation before the film opened. It's a remake of the great 1949 Academy Award winner about Willie Stark, the famous Southern politician who was eventually assassinated because he was a crook. At the end of the film, they usually shine a light onto the mezzanine where the cast stands up and takes another bow. They hit the mezzanine with a light, and there was nobody there. They had all gone home. And it was indicative of how bad the movie really was. And I knew how bad it was about 20 minutes in. You could just feel it. Nothing was working. Nothing. Penn was trying. Man, was he trying, but he was trying so hard that it just became evident that he had to try that hard to give a performance. It just didn't work. It just didn't work at all. And is one of the great disasters of the 2000s, a real crime of a failure.
We got to talk about Sean Penn's second Academy Award for Best Actor in The Story of Harvey Milk, 2008's Milk, directed by Gus Van Sant.
This had kicked around for about 10 years. At various times, Robin Williams was going to play Harvey Milk. Mickey Rourke had looked at it before it went back to Robin Williams. Eric Roberts had been discussed for it. Then it went back to Robin Williams. It always looked like it was going to get made with Robin Williams. And then he was too old. And Gus Van Sant was brought in to direct the film. And he said, what about Sean Penn? They went to Sean Penn expecting him to laugh in their face. And he said, okay. And listen to this list of awards. This is what he won for Milk. It's one of the most acclaimed performances in movie history. The Academy Award, the Boston Society of Film Critics for Best Actor, the Broadcast Film Critics for Best Actor, the LA Film Critics for Best Actor, the National Society of Film Critics Best Actor, the New York Film Critics Circle for Best Actor, the Screen Actors Guild for Best Actor, the Golden Globe for Best Actor. He won everything. He won absolutely everything. Harvey Milk was the first elected homosexual official in the history of the United States. He was elected in San Francisco, and he handled Castro Street, which had a huge gay population. In the US, if you didn't want to be terrorized or tormented as a homosexual, you went to San Francisco. And there, Harvey Milk made things better for the gays. And he was assassinated by a fellow congressman shortly after his election. He was so full of joy and hope. He was always smiling. And I think that's what worried everybody about Sean Penn playing the part. Yet he absolutely is transformative as Harvey Milk. He inhabits this character thoroughly. It's as if the spirit of Harvey Milk took over Sean Penn and guided him through this motion picture. It's an astonishing, brilliant performance. One of the greatest I've ever seen, and absolutely the best performance of Sean Penn's career.
And a better film than the one that won the Oscar that year.
Well, I'm not a fan of Slumdog Millionaire. I liked it. Everybody said, wow, this is original. This is great. It's a love story. Boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. It's as old as the 1930s. It just happened to be set in India in intense poverty and had a bouncy Indian musical score. Hugely, hugely overrated movie. I thought the best film of 2008 was The Dark Knight, but The Milk was the best of the nominated films.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's why I brought it up. I think Milk was the best of the nominated films, but definitely.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Sean Penn's next movie as an actor, 2010, Doug Liman's Fair Game.
Again, based on a true story. And he plays Joe Wilson, a writer for the New York Times, whose wife was an analyst for the CIA. And it is leaked into the newspaper that he is married to this woman who's an analyst for the CIA and puts everybody's lives in peril. It's a great study of paranoia and of fear mongering and just about the power of the press and the responsibility of the press and when they should maybe suppress something. And they should have suppressed this because they put this family's life in danger. And solid movie by Doug Liman. Great performances by Naomi Watts and Sean Penn, and a really interesting look at journalism and politics.
2011, controversial film where Penn appears is Terrence Malick's The Tree of Life. I remember sitting in the old Westdale Theater in Hamilton watching this, and it's not, those seats are not meant for like a 4-hour movie, but mixed reviews. What are your thoughts?
You know, I've seen it 2 or 3 times, and I understand the acclaim. I get why some people think it's a masterpiece. I do not. I think it's interesting. I think it's got some extraordinary poetry. I think Jessica Chastain and Brad Pitt sequences are lovely. The Sean Penn scenes just don't quite work. They look like they're from another film.
Yeah.
It's a broken narrative, so it's all over the place. Time is broken, and we're moving back and forth through time. And the Penn scenes seem to me to jar the movie to a stop. And when they're finally all together at the end of the film on the beach, which is meant to be the afterlife, beautiful poetic moment. But when it's over, do you really think about what it was about, or do you think about what the hell was that?
Yeah, it's
That's
definitely
what I've done.
was that kind of thing.
Yeah. My problem with Terrence Malick is that after The New World, which I love, I thought The New World is a masterpiece. I thought he kind of fell into artistic masturbation.
Yeah.
And it's just really, really not worked ever since.
2011, This Must Be the Place. Penn plays an aging rock star.
Yeah, and amazingly, this movie didn't get much of a release, and what a shame, because he is remarkable in it. He plays Cheyenne, an aging rock star who wears his hair in a huge pompadour up and down the middle of his back, paints his fingernails black, wears makeup, and talks in a really halting, high-pitched voice. And it's like he's on a permanent stone all the time. And a really remarkable performance. And his father, strangely enough, is a Nazi hunter. And this rock and roll guy gets hooked into hunting Nazis with his father a little bit. The movie is more about just the character study of this guy, Cheyenne. I'd watch Sean Penn all day. And when he's playing a character like Cheyenne, I'd watch him for 5 days straight. I don't know why it didn't get a big release. It's a great performance. It's not a great movie, but it is a great performance.
2013's Gangster Squad. I actually never saw this one. I've heard mixed things.
Yeah, it's a stupid movie. He plays Mickey Cohen, who was one of the gangsters of the 30s and 40s with Bugsy Siegel, and it's just a piece of junk. I don't know why he made it. He's got the plum role as the bad guy, but he really doesn't do anything with it. It's like his part that same year in The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, another movie I don't know why he made. I don't know why he wanted to be a part of it. There's nothing in it there to me that challenged him remotely. And he really wouldn't be challenged again until 2019 when he made The Professor and the Madman with Mel Gibson. And he played Dr. William Chester Minor. And the two of them together started to create the first dictionary, the first bringing together of words. And you would think Mel Gibson and Sean Penn would really do something as actors. And I think maybe it was the fact the director just couldn't control them. And they have great chemistry together. They really do. But it's like they're each too big for the frame. And the director just wasn't quite sure how to contain them.
I got very excited when I saw the trailer for that. I still am going to watch it.
I'm going to send it to you. I've got it here. It's ready to go. I just got to get to the post office.
Right on. Cool. Sean Penn, also quite a talented film director. So let's talk about that.
One of the best, I think. And he started directing in 1991, and he wrote a film called The Indian Runner, based on a song "Highway Patrolman" by his friend Bruce Springsteen. Sean Penn dated Pamela Springsteen for some time, Bruce Springsteen's sister, and he and Bruce became friends. And it's a really spiky, angry movie about two very different brothers. One of them a career criminal, played by Viggo Mortensen, the other a cop, played by David Morse. And it's about the dissolution of their friendship and their brotherhood, and how they just can't be together anymore because of their very separate lives. Beautifully acted. It was a choice at TIFF, just when TIFF stopped from being the Festival of Festivals to becoming the Toronto International Film Festival, and was well received. Critics liked it. Critics immediately said, yeah, the guy can direct. He's the real deal. The next film, The Crossing Guard, was even a bigger step because he cast Jack Nicholson. And Nicholson was terrific as a guy whose father, or as the father of a young girl killed by a drunk driver. David Morse, again, plays the drunk driver, and Nicholson has vowed he will kill him when he gets out of prison. And Morris gets out of prison, and that's exactly what Nicholson decides to do. He's going to kill him. It brought together Nicholson and Angelica Houston for the first time since their very public breakup. And they have a painful, agonizing scene together where they talk about why their marriage ended and the death of their daughter, and how he just sunk into such despair and couldn't handle it. And you can just feel the hurt from each of them about not being together again. The ending sees them both over the daughter's grave, the father and the guy who killed the young girl. And rather than kill him, he reaches out to him and they hold each other. And it's a powerful, shocking tableau when this happens. And the movie ends. A lot of people thought Sean Penn or Jack Nicholson should have been nominated for an Academy Award. I'm one of them. His performance was one of the best of 1995. And Bruce Springsteen wrote a haunting song for this movie that strangely was not nominated for an Oscar.
Penn would direct Nicholson again in 2001's The Pledge.
And this is one of Nicholson's best performances, I think. He plays a retired cop who had vowed to catch a murderer for a mother and wasn't able to do it, but he just can't let it go. He buys a gas station, he befriends a young single mom and moves her in, played by Robin Wright Penn, and they become lovers. And he actually uses her little girl as bait to try to get this guy to snatch her and put her in peril, which ends the relationship, obviously, of the two adults. And eventually, at the end of the film, Nicholson is left a blathering idiot. It's driven him mad, and he just has disconnected from reality. It's a stunning, stunning performance, and surrounded by great ones. You know, there's a lot of good people in this movie who do terrific work. Mickey Rourke is in this film, and he does exceptional work. So, you know, with actors, Penn is solid, rock solid when he works with actors.
Is probably his most famous directing effort is 2007's Into the Wild, starring Emile Hirsch.
Yeah, this is an American masterpiece. I saw this the first day it opened at TIFF, and while I'm watching it, I'm thinking, this is a goddamn masterpiece. It's a true story about Christopher McCandless, who broke from society. He was a child of privilege who was appalled by his parents' materialistic attitudes and quest for money. And he leaves. He drops out of sight, literally disappears, leaving them wondering where he is. Is he dead? Is he alive? And he wanders the United States, eventually heading to Alaska because it's pure. And he wants to experience the Alaska of Jack London and the great writers of America. And unfortunately, he eats a plant that's poisonous, and it kills him. He starves to death because the plant will not allow him to digest any other food. Sean Penn directed this with such a clear eye and such an eye for nature. There's a wonderful scene. It's over in a moment, but it hits you and you never ever forget about it. Emile Hirsch, who plays Chris McCandless, is watching caribou run in the wilderness, and we cut back to him, and he's so moved by it. He's weeping, and you see it once and you never forget it. And just an extraordinary movie. He was nominated by the Directors Guild of America for Best Director and several other critics groups. Incredibly, the Academy almost entirely ignored the film. Two friggin' nominations. and that's it. Film editing and Best Supporting Actor. Hirsch was ignored. Penn was ignored. It was ignored for Best Picture. Shameful. Absolutely shameful. 2007, I'll grant you, was a really good year for movies. But this was one of the best 3 movies I saw that year.
Really great film. I love the songs performed by Eddie Vedder on the soundtrack.
Oh, yeah, and none of them were nominated. None of them.
I think Emile Hirsch is brilliant in it. I struggle just a little bit. It doesn't take away from the movie really for me, but I've done my reading on Christopher McCandless, and to be honest, I think it was a dick move what he did to his parents, and
I do too. I do too. His arrogance is off-putting.
his arrogance is what killed him because
Absolutely.
he
Absolutely. And that's the lesson.
yeah, totally. He went into this situation completely unprepared, and you know the result was inevitable. But it is a masterfully executed film. I won't.
There's a powerful, powerful scene at the end of the movie where his father doesn't know where his son is. He doesn't know whether he's dead or alive. And he can't believe his son has done this to him. He's walking up the street and collapses in the middle of the street. And it might be the best moment on screen William Hurt has ever acted. It's so moving to see it, heartbreaking, because we know the boy's going to turn up dead.
Penn's next directorial effort was The Last Face, 2016.
Yeah, and what a bomb. I mean, it never even opened domestically in the United States. It played at Cannes, was crucified by critics. Charlize Theron starred in it with Javier Bardem. Massacred, like massacred by film critics. One critic said it's the biggest, how did he word it? The biggest disaster since Waterloo. And Penn walked away with his tail between his legs. It's said to be what ended his relationship with Charlize Theron.
Oh wow. There's notes here on an upcoming film he's going to direct called Flag Day.
And he's going to be in it. It's going to be the first time he acts in a movie.
Right. His daughter's going to be in it alongside Josh Brolin. And premise says the daughter of a con artist struggles to come to terms with her father's past. So I guess not a lot to know.
Yeah. I think it'll be terrific. I think it's got a great cast. I'm really interested to see how he does as an actor in his own films, because he hasn't directed himself yet. And
Yeah.
you can either do that or you can't. Some guys like Eastwood, Woody Allen, Warren Beatty can do it. No problem. They can
Ben
do it.
Affleck.
Ben
Bradley
Affleck can
Cooper.
do it. Yeah. Some can't. Some
Bradley
just can't.
Cooper's a good
They should
example.
never do it. Pardon?
Bradley Cooper gave his best performance in the first movie he directed.
He did. I mean, some guys are just made to do it, and others just shouldn't.
What can you think of some guys who are on the other side of that coin?
Jack Nicholson.
Right.
Jack Nicholson should not direct himself in a movie. He's got no control over himself. And he walks a fine line. He can either be absolutely brilliant, which he is most of the time, or he goes over the top. And as the director, there's nobody there to say, bring it down a bit. Burt Reynolds was the same. He went always way, way, way over the top and just couldn't do it. John Wayne didn't do well directing himself either. The times that he did were the Alamo, which was a disaster, and the Green Beret, which was even a bigger disaster. So it either works or it doesn't. I hope it works for Sean Penn. I think it will, because he's a pretty intuitive artist.
Well, we know he's a great actor and a great director.
Yes. So the hopes are high.
Yeah, so do the math. Yeah. That'd be an interesting subject for a podcast, actor directors.
Absolutely. Write her down. Let's do it.
Yeah, for sure. Any final thoughts on Sean Penn or anything else you want to tell our listeners?
Well, as he's aged, he's gone the Robert Redford look. He hasn't done anything plastic surgery wise. I credit him with that. A lot of guys age well. Warren Beatty has aged well. He's a good looking man, and he hasn't had any plastic surgery. Robert Redford has not. Robert Redford is wrinkly and craggy and is sun-baked. Sean Penn is pretty rough looking for his age. He's the same age as I am, and he looks it. He looks it. In fact, he looks older. A lot of wrinkles there. A lot of cigarettes, I suppose.
Yeah.
But that said, he's still one of the greatest actors that's ever existed in movies. You know, if you put a Mount Rushmore of actors in the U.S., Sean Penn's face would be on it, and deservedly so.
There you have it, folks. You heard it here. That's our show on Sean Penn. Be sure to check us out on all the social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, www.footandfriendsonfilm.com. Make sure to like and subscribe to check out our YouTube channel for this, all past and future episodes of the podcast. Got some cool shows coming up in the future. We're going to take a spotlight onto the 1980s, doing an episode on Jane Fonda, Christian Bale, a whole lot more. Be sure to give us your ideas if you have any. We'll see you at the movies.